Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming along with this journey tonight. I'm really excited. We have David Grissom. David Grissom is an American guitarist who has played and toured with several of America's top recording artists, which include John Mellencamp, Joe Ely, Storyville, and the Dixie Chicks. David has released 4 solo albums and is one of the top guitar players living here in Austin. I met David many years ago working on his equipment while I was in Storyville. Please welcome my friend, David Grissom.
Hey.
Hello, my friend.
How you doing, man?
How are you?
Good.
So chilling what's new?
Out.
Huh?
Just chilling out. I like the opening segment. It's like, I feel like are you ready to rumble?
That's right. Are you ready to rock? I recorded that. I did that here in the studio because, I needed something that, went along with the graphic that I created.
Yeah.
And it had to move, right? You have to move. It can't be you can't be like, oh, here we're starting. It's kind of like
it's like Monday Night Football. I love it.
That's right. So what's going on? What's been going on with you?
Man, I just sitting here playing guitars for people, putting guitar parts on their records in my little cave here that I call a studio, but it's that's sort of that's a glass half full description, but I got all my stuff here. I get great sounds. It works.
Well, you got your toys. That's all you need.
Yeah, I know. It's like I got all my paints and all my paintbrushes in this room, and that's kind of my day. Really is really that's what it comes down to, is just playing guitar for people. And lately, and I've got a New Year's resolution to try to write a new record and some new songs and kind of reboot a little bit, because throughout the pandemic I've kind of worked on everyone else's music.
Yeah, that's right.
And, so I'm trying to start. I'm going to try to start the new year, get my writing hat back on.
Well, I've noticed, like a lot of the different guys I've been interviewing, that's how they've made it through this, is that they've been working out of their studios and broadcasting all over the world, whenever somebody needs a track, whatever, bass, guitar, drums, whatever they're.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And I mean, I had done it. I've done it for years anyway. I mean, that I've recorded and mixed all my records, and kind of Economy with Dignity here, released them all myself. And so it's something that I was doing a lot anyway. And then when the pandemic hit and all the studios kind of shut down all at once, it was like this flood of stuff. And a lot of people, a lot of bands, a lot of they had projects that were almost finished, or they were and they couldn't finish. If you don't have your own studio, or you can't get into commercial studio. So I was getting stuff. I did a few full band tracks for people. Like I would put together a drum track and play bass and do the whole thing for a few. I did that a few times, and I mean, I barely had a day off for about 8 months.
No complaints, right? No complaints. You can't complain during this time.
I know. I love it. I mean, I really do like it a lot. I love making records. I mean, I prefer to make records. Well, I don't prefer, but I equally like the experience of getting in a room with guys and cutting live. But whether it's by myself here, which it has its own advantages, or cutting live, I mean, I love making records.
Well, that's what I grabbed these here. This is a couple of your albums, and because I wanted to show people that may have not seen your albums, but I strongly suggest everybody to go out and buy these. They're really cool. And
I have a live record too, which I released during the pandemic.
What's it called?
Trio Live 2020.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one. Sorry about that, but
that's okay. That's all right.
But yeah, no, it's awesome, because especially when you have your own studio, you can really focus on your tones, and focus how, without a clock rolling where people are going, okay, get it done. And the other great thing about Austin is you have a lot of great players that are available here. Rhythm sections, drummers, bass players. That anytime that you want to bring somebody in, they're here.
Yeah. It's a very rich well here.
It really is. And so what style are you working on this next album? What's it like?
it's kind of the same thing as, it's like the same mishmash as before, part. I mean, I never know until I get them finished.
Right.
And, each record sort of has a certain sound to it. And it kind of really depends on who's playing. I think more than anything, who's playing drums, and do I find like a guitar sound that I start to write around? My first record was a little bit rawer than the rest of them because I was just learning to operate a computer, basically, and record
Right.
on a computer. And then my second record was a little more popish, I guess. But I had Kenny Aronoff on the most on about 7 songs, and then Chris Layton played on 3 songs. And then you can really hear the difference, just whoever's playing drums really influences the sound, I think, almost as more than anything. And then my third record, J.J. Johnson played drums. That's a completely different bag.
Completely different
And then
player.
Brian Austin played on the fourth one. He has his own thing. And
oh, really? Yeah, well, that's who you're playing with now.
Yeah, he's been in my band since day one, really. And I mean, for my live band. And
yeah, no, I the other day when I came to see you, I shot this shot of you guys over at the Saxon.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't know, every Tuesday you play live there, right? It's pretty much.
Well, I have been for 10 years, but I'm taking some time. I'm going to take some time off to starting right now.
Really?
Yeah, I've been over there for 10 years on Tuesdays, and I as I was alluding to earlier, I really want to devote, kind of want to put myself in the position to write a bunch of new songs, because it's kind of like, a lot of the same songs for the last 10 years. And
right.
I really don't think I'm going to get past that unless I force myself to do it.
Well, also you're going, songs are a reflection of what's going on in your life, right? I mean, it's a lot of times you write based on what things that are happening, right? So a lot of things are changing. So you start, especially as we get older, we write about different things. We don't write the same kind of songs as we did when we were 20,
No. Unless you're Bob Dylan, and then you write a masterpiece at 18. And
God, I know, and you just go. It's like the Mozart and Moriarty, right? Where he's like, why can't I write one like this, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to write a song called Quarantine. I'm not going to, or Lockdown.
Right.
Before this whole thing, I have a song that I never recorded called Emotional Lockdown.
Right.
That I actually really like, but now I'm like, I can't. People will assume that it was written during this period, and it's 5 years old. But I mean, I think we've had our share of those songs. I mean, and
well, I think a lot of us just want to let it go, move on. Hopefully it ends, and that it's a thing that we go back. Yeah, remember those years? Yeah. I think that's the way that most people would like for it to happen. But
yeah. I mean, it definitely is a. I mean, I don't know. 1918 is the last time it happened, maybe.
Right? Yeah.
And exactly. And but you couldn't get groceries delivered in 1918.
No, that's true. And you couldn't have them put it in the back of your truck as you drove.
They didn't figure out how to get home delivery at Whole Foods.
Boy, if they would have, they probably would have done great.
Yeah.
So, are you from Austin? Where are you originally from?
I am originally from Kentucky.
Okay, Kentucky. All right.
And I left there when I was 17 and went to Indiana and played in bands up there and met a bunch of guys, met all the Mellencamp guys and Kenny Aronoff, and moved to Austin in 1983. And,
okay. So did you start playing with Mellencamp first? Is that
no, I played with John 91, 92, 93. So I was down here for almost 10 years before I went back and joined his band for 3 years.
Okay. I mean, it's so hard nowadays. I can only find one picture with you with John. I love the hairdo.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of mullet central, about that time period. And Yeah.
No, that's great. No, it's great. I'm serious. It was hard for me to find stuff that I could find. Was like, well, look at this one and look at that one. So,
I mean, it was pre-iPhone era, you know. I mean, nobody took pictures. You had to have like a pass to take a picture at a concert.
well, people ask me, like, during my Metaltronics years, I was working on all those albums every week after week after week, and I have nothing other than still pictures because there wasn't video cameras, and if you took, the only way you could take film was literally a 16 millimeter with a portable audio device to pick the audio up, right? You had to, there wasn't like, oh, we're filming, hey, check it out, we're working on this album, and I really wish there was, because it would have been great. I mean, that's footage I could have definitely used, later on. But so how many years were you with Mellencamp?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. I just like to say that I'm glad there weren't cameras back then.
No, it's, you know what? It's great. The only thing that I'm so glad that I wasn't part of this new generation is the scrutiny that everything you did, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question. I mean, the stuff that is so mundane that means nothing, that people are blowing up now, right? They blow up over some stupid thing. Somebody says one word, and like, I mean, not to jump ahead, but like what happened when you guys were on the tour with Dixie Chicks, right? I mean, you're going along, you're on a fantastic, huge tour, and a word is said and life has changed, right? I mean, that was
yeah, that was definitely that was an educational experience.
Well, I remember talking to
us at the time, but it went from like a walk in the park to the next thing you know, there's bomb sniffing dogs in the dressing room for the next 3 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was talking to Roscoe Beck, and he said that when he was standing behind her, he goes, I had this feeling that life had changed, like, so quickly.
She said that? You mean,
huh?
When the remark was made?
Yeah, when the remark was made. Yeah.
I mean, I had that feeling too, but I had no idea it would be that intense. And
yeah.
I mean, we were in London, and there were like all these. The war hadn't started yet, and there were huge protests, like thousands of people that were going around Hyde Park where we were staying, like all day long. And so it's kind of hard not to sort of pick up on that energy a little bit. And,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to get into politics in
well, of course not.
Form, but I mean, compare it to what some people say now, and it was like it's almost a joke.
Well, it's just everybody was so hypersensitive, and it's ridiculous, because you make a comment, it could have just gone by and everything just keep rolling, because she probably wouldn't have said it. It doesn't really matter. It's not like we're saying, we're not talking about what she said. We're just saying the environment was just, it was a drag, because you had a huge crew, all these people. You were what, a couple months into the tour, right?
No, we hadn't started the tour yet. We did Saturday Night Live and flew it in London.
Really? That was it?
I hadn't even played a gig. That was the first gig.
That was the
first gig.
Oh no!
That was the first gig we played, and we did. Like I said, we did Saturday Night Live, and like a couple of days later, flew to London and rehearsed. We never rehearsed until we got to London,
right? And
I think we rehearsed for like 2 days, and then we played the show, and
yeah. And then
we worked our way over to, like, I think Sweden, and then over to Australia. And I was calling my wife on the phone each day I was like, man, she's like, things are really getting weird here. And I'm like, really? I mean, like, really? And she goes, yeah, really. And then we got back to the States, and it was like, all of a sudden there's a bunch of guys with earpieces, and we're rehearsing out in the middle of nowhere, not SIR in Hollywood.
Right.
We're out in Long Beach, on an abandoned Air Force base or something, so I don't know, whatever.
No, I know.
In a really fun tour, and
what a wonderful group of people to play together.
It was awesome. I mean, they were awesome
Absolutely, absolutely. And
the band was incredible.
so, shifting gears, how did Storyville come together?
Well, Malford had a band called Storyville that had a whole different group of people, and then that band sort of morphed as he made a record called Bluest Eye, and that our friend Stephen Bruton produced. And
okay.
I played on some of that record. Chris Layton played on some of that record. I think Tommy Shannon may have played on. I don't remember who all played. If David Holt played on it or not, I can't really remember. But when that record came out, they sort of needed, like, then it was like, well, now we need to tour this record, and so we really need to put together a band. And Chris and Tommy, I think, kind of got on board first, and then they asked me and David to be a part of it. I believe that's how it happened. It's hard for me to remember exactly the chronology of it all, but I had just left John Mellencamp, and I had an offer to join Rod Stewart's band, and at the same time, the Storyville thing came up, and the Rod Stewart thing was like a ton of money, more than Mellencamp, and it was even more than, which is like way more, like 10 times of what I could have. It was ridiculous, like a whole nother level for me. And but I heard Malford sing, and played with the guys, and Chris and Tommy, I think, are one of the all-time great rhythm sections. I mean, the two of those guys together,
absolutely,
just like something happens that doesn't happen with anybody else. And so I had chose to do Storyville, and I just felt, I've always gone with my gut, and sometimes that means you make money, and sometimes it means you don't make money up front. But I've tried to always, and I learned this from Joe Ely, is to make decisions based on where you're going to grow and learn, and what's true, what feels right in your gut. And I just felt like if I was, no judgment at all on Rod Stewart or his thing. I just kind of felt like if I did that, I was going to be in a cover band the rest of my life. And I'd just gotten off the John tour, which it did not feel like a cover band at all, because I played on 3 records with him, and it was a great experience to work with John in the studio. But I felt like, the whole, playing all those Rod Stewart hits night after night was going to be not as fulfilling as kind of just jumping into the van with these guys and seeing what happened. And Storyville never got beyond a certain level of success, but I started writing a lot more songs, and it was hard. At times, we were back and forth across the country in a van, I-40. I know well.
That's right.
Chris Layton and I kind of drove for 5 years. We took turns driving, and but it was a great experience. In that, I really feel like I've been lucky enough to sort of make the right calls when those T's in the road come up.
Right.
It was the one time my wife disagreed with. She thought I was making a mistake. That Rod Stewart gig. Storyville. But that's like the only time ever that she has not. She's a wise,
of course,
wise person as well. But that's how that all came together, and we did 2 full records with that band, A Piece of Your Soul and Dog Ears.
Right.
And gave it our best shot. And then had a reunion, I think, in 2000 and something, and did a live record and a live DVD. I think we were more popular then, after we'd broken up, 10 years after we'd broken up, or 5 years after, than we were when we were together. And but it was a great experience.
It's great. Well, what I was going to say is one of the things I didn't realize when I first met you guys, because you were rehearsing there at the Ark, and was, Tommy was, with Johnny Winter. And I remember seeing, when I was really young, I remember going to Johnny Winter concerts, and I was like, wow, that's him who played with Johnny, right? And amazing.
At Woodstock.
right at Woodstock.
Yeah.
And I was going to say is to have that rhythm section, like you're saying, is everything as a guitar player. I mean, that makes it really a joy to play against. And you guys was a great band, definitely a great band. And I'd hear you guys rehearsing all the time. I really do miss that. Here in Austin, we had a place called the Arc, the Austin Rehearsal Complex, which was like the musicians' barbershop. I mean, literally.
Yeah, Floyd's barbershop.
It was Floyd's barbershop.
Where everybody hung out, and that's the Archangels.
Yeah,
the ARC, the Archangels. We all hung out there. Everybody hung out there. It was ground zero, and it was like the fellowship and the community, musical community. That was ground zero, and we could wander down the hall to your place to get our amps fixed.
That's right.
If you need tubes, you could raid my locker.
Right.
I hoarded tubes, and
right. Well, everybody, that was how when I set up there. That allowed me to meet the core of anybody that was really doing anything in the city. That there was everybody there, rehearsing, because it was the only place to rehearse for a long time.
The only game in town,
yeah. And they were really nice. It wasn't like some nasty rehearsal place. No. It was a fun rehearsal place, and like you were saying, it had an area lounge in the front where everybody would just hang out, and a lot of people got gigs from that, hanging out in that front area. And even if you didn't have a gig, you showed up and had coffee with everybody. And
man, you just cruise by. Hey, I'm gonna go down the Arc.
That's right. That's right.
Some people go eat breakfast. Some people go hang out at the Arc.
That's right. The
machine was always going, and it was,
and there was pretty girls. And there was pretty girls.
Just throw a quarter in the can for your coffee. It was like, nah, we don't do that, man. You want some coffee?
That's right.
Wayne Nagel talking.
That's right. Wayne Nagel. I just saw him recently over at.
I see him all the time, man.
Over at what's the Curra's? I saw him at Curra's. Yeah, and it's so great. Wayne. I mean, he's such a personality. But anyway, that's not to get too far off, but that's what the Arc was. And it was quite sad, because it was also the place that when people came through town, big acts, because sometimes really big acts would come in there quietly and rehearse and then be on their way. And it was, you'd be surprised, you'd be listening and hearing something going, wait a second, I know who that is, and one last thing that was the wildest thing is where my room was in this far corner, and I was flanked by 2 rehearsal rooms, and where my shop was not insulated, but the rooms were insulated, but my shop was not. And one afternoon, there was a hardcore country band in one of the rooms, and in the other room was a heavy metal band. Okay, now they couldn't hear each other, but there was at one point they were both playing in the same key, and it was working, right? Because they'd be like, ga 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 ga. Well, you know what? Ga 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 ga. And I was like, this is just. I wish I had a recorder, because it was like a new kind of music,
Yeah. I mean, it was that. I mean, I hate to romance the way Austin used to be, but that was a really cool time.
It was back with dollar tacos, and you
didn't have to pay to park everywhere, and
now
there's now a Nike store like right above the Arc, right. Which is like where hookers once were on every corner is now a Nike store.
That's right.
And
not
Austin, anything wrong with that, or that I'm trying to recreate. Right.
No, it's different. Austin's different. The traffic it's Austin. It's enough of that. But Austin was it was everything that people used to talk about back then. It was like that. Like Hollywood was like in the early years. It was amazing, but it's not the same. And Austin's just not the same as it was. And so anyway, so how did Joe Ely come about?
Well, I joined his band in '85, and that was I got here in '83, and I started playing with Lucinda Williams, like really quickly, like right after I got here. And then she got Derek O'Brien in the band as well. So we had 2 guitar players. And then Derek got me in Lou Ann Barton's band. And in 85, I had done something with Roscoe Beck in LA. We got to know each other.
Right.
Through a project I'd gone out there. There was a woman here named Lisa Rhodes that I played with as well. And her manager was part owner in Amigo Studios out in LA and took me out there with Lisa, and Roscoe was out there. He played on it, and we met. And when we came back to Austin, Joe Ely, Roscoe was working with Joe Ely, and they had an Australian tour, and Mitch Watkins, who was playing with Joe, couldn't make the tour. So Roscoe Beck recommended me for the gig. And I got a call from Joe's brother one day. It was like noon. He woke me up at noon, and I'm like, this is Joe's brother, Mark, and we want to know if you would like to go to Australia with us. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, when is it? He said, next week. And so that was before you could get a passport in 24 hours.
Right.
I'd never been out of the country. So I had to run down to, whatever it was, the copy store,
right,
and get a passport photo. And then he had to drive it to Houston and to the consulate, or
that's right,
consulate or something like that. And they got me a passport, and we played like a gig at Antone's to rehearse and flew to Australia. And I ended up working with Joe from 85 until I joined Mellencamp in 91. And it was some of the best times I've ever had in my life. It was a musical rocket ship. And, what I learned in that band and what I learned from Joe and the opportunity he gave me to grow, it was, it's priceless.
No, those are special times. And that's the thing, that you're so lucky to have that. And and touring, how fun, right? I mean, going to Australia,
I was in heaven. I mean, like touring when I first got here and went to New Orleans with Lucinda, and we played the Jazz and Heritage Festival. That was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
This is like in New Orleans. I'm staying in the French Quarter at this hotel. We're laying by the pool, and Roy Orbison and his band are hanging out, and Richard Thompson, and I'm eating food that is like, Kentucky. It was like,
fried, a lot of
cheeseburgers and fried chicken. I mean,
that's right.
At the time, right. And so it was. I mean, everything about it was awesome, and Lucinda was great, and Joe was great. I mean, it was just again, though, intuitively, all the music I was listening to when I was in Indiana was coming out of Austin, and I just got in the car and drove down here and fell in love with it.
Absolutely. Well, 6th Street was different then, because you had the Black Cat. You had a bunch of places that you
Steamboat. Yeah, Steamboat was really big. I played there a ton, and it was that part of 6th Street it's now like Bourbon Street.
Right.
Was just bar after club after club with bands in it, and now the other side of the highway, 6th Street, is more music oriented. Now the part of 6th Street where we used to hang out is just like Jello shots and.
Well, it's and you're not seeing, because of again the changing of Austin. Everybody's complaining about making noise, right? I mean, here it's supposedly the music capital, but don't make any noise. Yeah. But
we're all gonna move there because we love the town and we love the music. But you guys are too loud. When we get there, we're gonna ask you to turn down.
And don't park anywhere, because what people don't understand is there's nowhere to get your gear into the club, right? So the only thing you can do is pull up in the street in front and unload. The only problem is they're giving you a ticket as you're as you stop your vehicle. It's like, can I just drop my gear off? But anyway. So what got you into guitar as a kid? What was your thing that Revolver?
Revolver got me into guitar.
Okay. And it was like,
that was it in a nutshell. I mean, I fell asleep every night with the AM radio on next to my bed, little transistor
Right.
and I would turn it on. And I started out playing drums. I mean, I was really, it's not like my grandfather had a little drum set in his basement. You know, they had like a bar down there, like a little, it was about 10 by 15, and there's a bar and a drum set. And he would just kind of tap around a little bit. He didn't really play. And my mom, she might have played a little piano by ear, but I don't know, for some reason, man, I just got, music was the thing. And then my mother died when I was 10 years old. And at that point, I didn't know it at the time or make a conscious effort of it. But now looking back on that, it was just sort of, music was the sort of the refuge.
Absolutely.
That I dug
Absolutely.
into. And I heard, so I was like wanting to play drums, and I heard Revolver, and then it was like, oh man, guitar. I mean, the sound is still to that. That's a
that tone.
Top 5 album for me, and from there, it was.
So what changed from drums to guitar? Well, so you heard that, and now I'm going to play guitar. So did you get a guitar? What was your first guitar?
Well, I mean, I was like, go to the mall and rent a harmony,
Okay.
I think that when when my mother died, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe he wants to play, maybe he is serious about guitar, that a couple of her friends would actually drive me to the mall after school, and I would take guitar lessons from a guy. That lasted about a month.
Right.
And then I persuaded my father to let me rent a Harmony Electric. And then I was like at home trying to play along with a bunch of stuff, and I really wasn't getting anywhere. And then there was a guy in my neighborhood who I sort of got hooked up with, taking some lessons from, and he taught me how to play Sympathy for the Devil and House of the Rising Sun. And apparently he thought I was a quick study, because after about 6 months, he was like, you need to go take lessons with this guy named Philip Bingham and Philip Franchini. And he got me he introduced me to Philip, and that was where I got, turned on to B.B. King, and just pretty much a straight blues thing. And that really opened up my eyes and ears. It was like harmonically not so sophisticated. I was able to everybody starts with the blues, right? And that's where I went there. And at the same time, found out about the Allman Brothers and ZZ Top and the Stones more in depth, and always, always the Beatles. The Beatles were always there, and from there, I started taking lessons. Philip then suggested I take lessons with a guy in Louisville named Jeff Sherman, who was a jazz guitar player, and he really helped me grow a lot and taught me. I learned to read a little bit and read charts and theory, and it was Wes Montgomery and Kenny Burrell, and learning to play some standards and reading a little bit, not enough, but enough to get me down the road. And so that was super, super helpful. And, man, I was listening. My father was always playing country stuff in the house. And then in Louisville, there was a lot of bluegrass, and, it was pre-internet, and you just, whatever you could find that was cool, that sounded cool. The guys I ran around with, we were like, it wasn't really like, oh, you can only listen to traditional blues.
Right.
Or you can only listen to hardcore country, or you can only listen to heavy rock stuff. It was just like whatever was the naysayers were not out in full force at that point. You know, the choir of what's wrong was not in effect yet. And so, you know, and in a relative, like at the time, Louisville felt like a smaller town, and there wasn't. The cool thing about it is that it was a stopover town for all the rock bands that came through. You know, if you needed to fill a show between Chicago and Atlanta, it was right in the middle, or between St. Louis and Cincinnati, or you know, Cleveland. You know, you could come through Louisville, and so sometimes in the same year, like I would see Leonard Skinner 3 times in a year, or Marshall Tucker 3 times in a year. And we went every time, and it was like, I remember, you know, being $5.
That's right. A ticket was $5.
In festival seating. So my friend and I would get down there. We'd be the first person to be, like, the doors would be locked and nobody would be there, and we'd be at the front door waiting, and we'd be the first people through the door and run and get to the front of the stage and stand there, you know, for the whole show. And
that's right.
All in. So Sly and the Family Stone, Santana, Jeff Beck with Jan Hammer, ZZ Top a bunch. I can't even remember all the bands we saw, but they all came through. The Outlaws, and we would just go see, even if it wasn't like our favorite band, we would go.
It's inspiring. It's really inspiring to sit there and see it in front of you, and you know it's achievable, right? Because it's so obviously from a harmony guitar, you started going towards, you know, achieving your tone, right? I mean, what was your first guitar that you?
Yeah, my first good guitar was a Fender Mustang, and I got a Fender Mustang and a Vibro Champ, and that was like a serious upgrade. And that really was kind of when I sort of kicked into gear. And then somehow I got a Stratocaster after that. And
so that's still really clean at that point. Even if you crank them wide open, it's still a clean sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't really know about that stuff too much. So then I don't know how I got that Stratocaster. I mean, I think I sold the Stratocaster and that we had this paper called the Bargain Mart.
Right.
You go and it'd be a free classified thing. And it said Les Paul.
Oh, no.
And awesome. I had a broken leg from roughhousing under dubious circumstances. Out in the middle of a field with some friends of mine, and so I might have been too young to drive anyway, but I remember my father drove me over into Indiana to look at this guitar. I mean, I had to beg him.
Right.
And it was a 52 Les Paul, and it was $275. And I'm like, he loaned me the money.
Right.
And I remember he didn't have the money, and he had his checkbook, and he asked these people who didn't know who we were,
right,
would you take a check? And they took it, and so that was really. Then I remember I got that in a PV then I had a PV Classic amp.
Oh, but that's a good combination.
Yeah, and then I would always play on the neck pickup though.
Yeah.
You know, and now I play on the bridge pickup 99% of the time. But I was looking for the warmth and sort of the, you know, and it was one of those weird, you know, it was the trapeze tailpiece where the strings went under.
Right.
It was a really early one. Didn't have a serial number. I didn't really realize how early it was.
Right.
And I took it down to the music store and had them put a stop tailpiece on it and a Tune-o-matic bridge.
Right.
And they didn't even know, what the neck angle. So they had to grind down the bottom of the Tune-o-matic bridge. I was like, you know, but
that's right. It's what you did.
Play better than I could mute the strings, you know.
Right.
You couldn't even mute the strings with the old tailpiece. That's right. Make the new ones now. Joe Glazer has come up with that thing where the strings will actually go over on the 52 and early 53.
Right.
You can do it without doing what I did.
Right.
Anyway, that was super cool. And then
so at that point, because P90s on that.
Oh yeah.
P90s. So at that point, because P90s are hot, and that PV amp, at that point you start getting that feel where you're pushing the amp, and that's probably when you first started getting the feeling of what became your playing style, right?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't know that I mean, I didn't really have a playing style. I tell you, when things shifted was when I got a PRS in '85, and then
Okay.
I got a 50-watt Marshall
Well,
at the same
of course.
time. So that was like when everything kind of
right.
Came together. And well, before actually, let me go back a notch. When in 1980 I was touring with a band through the Midwest, and Kenny Aronoff was the drummer. And I mean, we went through Memphis, and I met a guy there that had a Strat. It was a 1960 Stratocaster, and it was Fiesta Red. And he wanted 375 for it, which I didn't have. And I got back to Indiana, and then thought about it, and figured out how to pull it off. Called him, and he goes, "Well, inflation, it's 400." So I got and I don't know, back then, God only knows how he shipped it to me. He might have just put a shipping label on the handle of the case, and it came up in a UPS truck. I mean, who knows? We didn't know back then. It was like whatever. And so I showed up in Austin with that guitar, and I still have the guitar, and it's awesome. It's like the best Strat, the best slabboard Strat I've ever played, and I still have it. And luckily, so I got here with that. But everybody here played a Strat, and I just wanted something different. And PRS runs these ads in a guitar player, the Seafoam green guitar in 1985. And I'm like, and I checked it out and loved it. And it was my first humbucking pickup guitar, I think.
How much were they at that time?
They were, I bought it in Dallas, and it was $900, and the case was $100.
So $1,000.
So it was $1,000. I did not have that, but I had acquired a 59 Esquire.
Okay.
And I remember I paid $600 for that guitar on account at Ray Hennig's Heart Attacks Music.
That's right, Ray Hennig.
Time, and it was all original, and I took it to Dallas to try to trade for this PRS. And the guy, he says, "I'll trade you the guitar, but I can't let you have the case."
Really?
So I got 59 Esquire. And
so,
I think I don't know what I did. Maybe I had a credit card and bought the case, or
right.
I don't know. But anyway, I brought it back, and that around the same time, a guy that was here at the time that taught me so much about guitars and vintage guitars, Danny Thorpe, helped me he helped me find my tone, basically. I mean, he knew more about stuff than anybody in town at the time.
Right.
And he helped me get a 50-watt Marshall. And I got that in a high-watt 212 cabinet, and that changed everything. And then I went out to San Francisco to play with Joe Ely, and our trailer got broken into, and that got stolen. Like really fast. And then I just kept buying. I actually had it insured, unbelievable, because I was in the musicians union,
right?
Insurance, and so I had the money to buy another one, and I just that started this whole journey of vintage Marshall amps, mainly Marshalls.
That's right.
Every one of them sounds different.
Absolutely.
And, I kept chasing the Dwayne at the Fillmore tone,
right,
constantly. And so that was the big shift for me, was getting the PRS and a Marshall.
Oh, which was very distinct for your sound. I mean, of your playing, everything. It's that's when I met you. You had your Marshall, and your tone. Well, then you started then at that point, starting to getting into pedals a little bit, and started adding more things to your repertoire of sounds. And
there wasn't much, though. I mean, I had a TC Electronics booster.
Right. And that's when I built that other booster for you.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really using a distortion pedal. It was just something to hit the front end of the amp harder.
Right.
And then I had a chorus, the TC chorus that I used
right.
to fake Leslie sound,
right,
on a fast chorus. And then I carried around a Fender reverb tank.
That's right.
Because I love the sound of that big reverby thing into a
Right.
Marshall. And I did that forever. I mean, and that's, I used that throughout all the Ely years. And I mean, there's like Austin City Limits, like everyone I ever did with Ely and with McMurtry and John Mayall and Kevin Welch and all these other people. That was what I used, was the 50-watt Marshall in the reverb tank and the TC booster.
Interesting, because reverb sounds so different on the input of an amp than it does in the loop of an amp, right? Like a Fender amp, it's basically after the preamp is the reverb, right? So you're actually putting distortion into the reverb instead of reverbing the distortion, right? And that it's a different sound. It definitely is different. So obviously, you're playing PRSs at some point. Was like a NAMM show, went to the PRS booth and they are like, "Hey, David, you want to start playing our guitars?" I mean, it's obviously it.
No, actually, I bought the first one in '85, and I was at a vintage guitar show in '86, and I met Paul Reed Smith.
Okay.
And he heard me play. And maybe the dealer that I bought it from up there said, "Hey, he's got one of yours." Paul liked the way I played, introduced himself, and said, I'd like to give you a guitar. We could have an informal endorsement arrangement, and I'll give you a guitar, and then all the parts you need, anything you need to fix your guitars, I will provide all that. And so about a month later, the Gold Top showed up, and that was my main guitar for a long time. And I couldn't fathom that he was giving me this guitar. I mean, I remember the UPS truck pulling up in front of my apartment. I remember the sound of the truck pulling up and the doors swinging open. And so we met each other in '86 and continue to have a good relationship and have designed things together. And the things that I've played, the models have evolved. And
absolutely. And the pickups. I mean, those Dragon pickups sound amazing.
I don't know anything about the Dragon pickups. I have my own pickups.
Well, no, I know, but that's what he had in the original one, like the one, your first one, that was probably what he.
No, he didn't have anything called a Dragon pickup then. It was they just said treble and bass on the back. He had like one pickup initially, and then he got into like the Dragon and the HFS and all these other things
right
after that.
Oh, okay.
Mine have the original, which I remember I was always trying new pickups, and I had a bunch of these original pickups, and he would send me stuff. I don't know. I got several guitars after a while from him. And I remember one time we had like this little swap meet here in town, and I had like a stack of the old T and B pickups. Yeah. I couldn't give them away at this place. And now they go for like $1,000 a piece.
That's right.
To get the original PRS pickups.
Yeah.
And I was like, they really worked well with Ely and on a lot of things, and they were great. But as I went along, I wanted something with a little less mid-range and a little, more PFE. And so the pickups that are in my guitars now and that I helped design are like more like that. But if I had known, I had a box of them.
Right.
It's like a Klon, and I had 3 Klons.
Right.
I got like the first Klon in Austin, and it was like, $175 or something, and a friend of mine has one in a box with all the papers he's selling on Reverb for $7,500.
Yeah, five to 7,000 is I mean, just for it's wild how a certain piece of gear people grab onto, and it has no rhyme or reason, because a Klon's an interesting pedal, but it's not the change your life sound pedal. It's just, it does a thing, right? And but somebody sits there and goes, oh, and it's the same thing in the amplifier world, right? What causes this amp to be worth so much money and this one not. And, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah. To me, the thing about the Klon, it had a great buffer in it.
Right.
And it just sounded good if you put it at the front of your chain.
Right.
And hit it with a little bit of gain. It was more like a boost, but it's not like other pedals will do that. But at the time, that's what it just felt good to play through it. But
right.
I went out a couple of years ago and I sat in with Joe Bonamassa in Pittsburgh. And it's one of those situations where you come down for sound check and we'll go over something. And I'm like, you know that during the show you're going to have 2 seconds to plug in and start playing. So I borrowed a Klon from somebody because I was going to play one of Joe's Tweed Twins.
Right.
And we hooked the Klon up, and it was like, it sounded like shit, Right. I mean, and finally I just said, just plug straight into the amp and turn it up a little louder. And it was like,
it's awesome.
So much better.
Absolutely.
So better. I mean, and those twins, those Bonamassa twins, those Tweed twins, the full power things,
they are awesome.
They're like badass, man. They're really, really good sounding amps. And so, I mean, not to knock a Klon, but I mean, in some situations, it's just, it really colors the sound, and it can. I mean, maybe they're all different. I don't know. I mean,
they are all different.
Years and liked them, but then I found stuff I like better.
Well, there was this guitar player I was doing some stuff with, and he had bought one from Canada for $50. It wasn't an original. It was some guy had copied the design and bent up a box. I mean, literally bent a box out of, tin, right? Bent this box and drilled holes in it. And it was the ugliest thing, but it actually sounded great. So it's, they're not all the same, just like, not every amplifier is the same, and I think that somebody found a magical one, right? And that's and that's what they say. They think they're all that way, and they're not. But and effects anyway are very personal, as you well know. I mean, that's something that when you get used to something that you use, that's what you like. It's the same thing with your guitars. And so staying on the PRS, when did I know? So he started wanting to get into the amplifier market, and because you have a signature model in that also, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing these amps for, I don't know, 10 years maybe. And then after about 3 years of doing that, I started working with Doug Sewell, who is their amp designer there, and we designed an amp from the ground up, like we didn't start with a platform, we're going to start with a Deluxe or a Plexi or a AC30. We just started with a blank sheet of paper, and so I wrote down what I would like to have,
Right.
And then we began this kind of 2-year process of him coming to Austin, listening to my Tweed Deluxe, listening to my 50-watt high watt, listening to my Plexi 50, listening to my AC30. And then here's what I like about each one. How can we do that? And then such a huge part of it was, we got to get the gain right, and we got to get the compression right.
Right.
So you have too much of either one of those, you just disappear.
Right.
But you need some to have it feel good. And so it was just a long process, and Doug was very patient with me. And I honestly, I've got 20 amps in here, and most of them are vintage amplifiers, and 90% of the time I use my PRS amp.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's so dialed into what I like, and it's not the perfect amp for everybody, but for me, the way it sits in the mix. Like on tape, I'm here with studio monitors, and when you're stacking 4 or 5 different parts, you can't it's just hard to describe, but it's all about mid-range.
That's right.
To get guitar to sit in a mix. And this amp, I take it, and I take other amps to sessions constantly, and every single time the producer picks this amp.
Right.
I mean,
No.
you know what? If we're like 2 or 3 parts in on the song, then he'll say, "Yeah, let's try the Marshall, or let's try the whatever." But
Right.
it it's been a really great usable amp, and it's 30 watts, but it's a loud 30 watts, and
it's definitely loud.
I can crank it all the way. I mean, I crank the master on 10 all the time.
Okay.
The volume's on 6-ish. And
so you're pushing the power amp section on it.
Power amp section, I don't want a master volume.
Right.
And so when it's on 10, it's pretty much
it's out of the circuit.
Out of the circuit. And so it's like the greatest, my Marshalls I set the same way, around 6, 5.5 or 6.
Right.
And really good Marshalls that are not like super dirty,
right.
Like the
sort
of the plexi thing where you can just plug into one channel. You don't have to bridge the channels.
That's right.
The more of a basement tone stack.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
It responds the same way, but even a little more friendly. And, I can put a microphone in the relative vicinity of the center of the speaker. I mean, I don't have to there's no like.
You're not pulling out the flashlight going.
And putting flashlights out. I just kind of throw the mic in a general thing. If it's like too dark, I'll move it like
yeah.
And then we're done. Or,
right.
But half the time it's like just fine where it is. And so it records really well. It's super microphone friendly. And then live, it holds up well. I mean, it's so sometimes, like a 50-watt Marshall or 100-watt Marshall live is godlike, and you love it because it's your pant legs are moving.
Right.
It's huge and all that low end. And then you bring it into a studio and put a microphone right up on the speaker, and it's like, oh, there's some weird stuff going on in there.
Right.
You don't hear from 10 feet away.
That's right.
At 110 dB.
That's right. So is it EL84 on the output?
Yeah, it's 7189s.
7189s, right.
The military equivalent.
Right.
And the voltage is pretty high, so there's these Russian new old stock 7189s that actually are getting a little harder to find, but a regular EL84, of which I'm quite fond of.
Right.
From my AC30.
Right.
I still buy tubes nonstop, whether I need them or not. These are like Siemens,
right?
Got from the tube store because they were on sale, and who doesn't love a sale?
Oh,
I'm a tube collector, and then so they're in different boxes, but I got 2 5881s for my Brown concert.
Oh, that's awesome.
Tunksol.
Right, of course.
$140 a piece.
That's right, and
unbelievable.
And going up
by the day. So they were on sale, and I bought them. So hopefully this is the last set of tubes I ever put into the Brown concert. Anyway, so with the 7189 it does take more plate voltage, current, and it also is a little bit stouter. It doesn't fold down quite as quickly as an EL34. So it's kind of, I mean, people ask me to describe the amp, and I think it's somewhere between like a Tweed Bassman or a JTM 45, like a strong JTM 45 and an AC30, sort of. It's like it's got some of the mid range of an AC30, but you're not limited to that. You can suck the mid out a little bit to where you get more into JTM 45 land.
Right.
And a JTM 45 is only a 35 watt amplifier.
Right. Well,
and I have one, and this is louder than the JTM 45.
Oh, I can tell you, coming to see you over at the Saxon, it's loud.
Yeah.
It can go.
It's a good loud, though.
Yeah. No, it's a great loud. Oh, no, I like loud.
Yeah. It's warm.
Warm. It's warm and fat. It is fat. And if you need to push it a little more, I know you have a couple of different distortion pedals that
that's my approach, is to hit it on the front end a little bit now with a clean boost or an overdrive pedal, and or both.
Right.
It's the best. It took me a long time to actually use an overdrive pedal, and now I use them all the time. And I have a treble booster on my studio board too that does its own thing, and constantly rotating overdrive pedals in and out. But in fact, like on this board I'm looking at down here now, there's 5 overdrive pedals on there. They all have a different flavor.
Complete
more than
different
2 on at once, but you kind of stack them up and different, like Strats, like a certain EQ profile on an overdrive pedal, more of a mid-range tube screamer-ish kind of, I think, than humbucking pickups. I like them where they don't. I like them all different ways, but I don't really like a tube screamer and a humbucking pickup.
Right, it's too squashed.
It's a little too midi.
Right,
too squashed.
It is too squashed. It does. Well, and the thing is going to change. Like I was going to say, is it's also the size of your stage, right? Because if you're in a larger stage where you can turn it up a little more, less you need of a pedal. I mean, it's the best world is being able to control it by your volume control on your guitar, right?
And that's a huge part of what I do. If I want a clean sound, I just turn down to 7,
right,
and maybe play a little lighter. I've just never been a channel switching guy, because for me, and I know it works great for thousands and hundreds of thousands of guys, but for me, the clean is always too clean and the dirty is always too dirty.
Too dirty. That's right.
It's just, for me, it's more organic in the way that I play, and I can't stress enough. Anything I say is related to the way I play. And everybody plays different, and I sometimes hear guys play super high gain amps that have a certain touch, and it sounds godlike. I get on there and it's just like a bull in a china shop. And
there's some players that their whole style is based around having ridiculous amounts of gain. I mean, they can't play unless they have this soupy gain, and which I've never understood either myself, because I'm like you. I like it to be able to clean up with my volume control, and if I want to go over the edge, I'll put just a gain booster to push the front end a little bit more without, because most distortion pedals, you lose low end, and that sucks.
That's very true. And that's why I have this pedal. I have a signature pedal that Jetter makes, and that's the beauty of that pedal, is it does not lose the low end.
That's important.
And but then you don't want it to be too much, because then it gets completely muddy, and then you lose the mid thing you need to.
That's right.
But this pedal that I had a fair amount of input on it, but all his pedals sound really good to me. And
excellent.
That's sort of like, I use an exotic EP booster with the internal dip switch on the vintage mode, which cuts off a little top end.
Right.
I'm always running from harsh top end, especially when I'm soloing. I want it to cut, but it can't be shrill. And so I put it on the vintage mode, and then the Jetter overdrive is kind of like that pedal with a gain boost.
Oh, okay.
So it keeps the same tone, and then it's got I can add a little more gain and then adjust the overall top end response, but I never lose the bottom.
Right.
And it's so not like a tube screamer, which takes the top and the bottom and squishes it into the, it just becomes a mid focus thing.
Yeah, it is.
Which is great for a Strat, like on a lead, like a bridge pickup on a Strat, which can be like ice picky.
Right.
It's great for rhythm, but when you take a solo, it's kind of, that's why so many people, Stevie being the guy that comes to mind most, the tube screamer, the Strat thing for him was why it works so well.
Well, what I was going to say is, what people don't know what the EP is it's the exact circuit of Echoplex EP3. It's a very simple circuit, but so many guitar players in history loved their Echoplexes without the Echoplex being on, with just the sound going through it. And that's what it is.
A lot of people use them on all the time, and when they do that, I find that they generally do not go into that vintage mode. So you're adding a little bit of top end.
Yeah.
I always found that an Echoplex, it was just like more of everything, but I didn't perceive it as adding top end and maybe because it was running through the tape.
Well, yeah, the tape was dulling it out.
The tape was dulling it out. So
that's right.
If you're thinking about buying an EP booster, folks, remember there's dip switches inside that you
That's
might
right. It makes a big difference.
With it really completely changes the pedal. And
I find the EP booster sounds great with single coils. I like it with single coils.
Well, I use it for everything.
Okay.
And you know, single coils, I tell you what it's really great for. You're right. And for instance, if I want to go back and forth between the PRS and a Tele or a Strat, when I go to the Fender, I will turn it on and leave it on, and then the volume, it matches the volume, and then that little vintage mode thing just takes some of the, because I've got the amp EQ'd for a humbucker,
right, and
then it just slightly, ever so slightly, takes the spikiness out of the single coil, and so it's super cool if you're just going back and forth in a hurry and don't want to touch your amp. I just leave it on a lot with that.
No,
and like, you know, TV stuff. I did the ACL Hall of Fame show the other night. We backed up several people, and I used an Jerry Jones electric 12 string.
Oh, nice!
And it just doesn't have the output,
right?
And instead of tweaking my amp or anything, I just put the EP booster on and left it on.
Well, it's got soap bar pickups on it, right?
Yeah, those are lipstick.
I'm sorry, lipstick.
Yeah,
lipstick.
So very low output.
Yeah,
and then when I, you know, so you just put a little bit of clean boost on it, and then it's like, it's not like,
yeah.
I mean, your level's the same. The guy in the booth is happy. He's not like, oh, what happened to Grissom's guitar? You know, where'd the guitar go? It's like,
where is he? Where is he?
And you know, those situations where it's like kind of high pressure and things are moving really fast, and
that's right.
The most important thing is the featured performer's makeup is more important than the guitar.
That's right. You just want to plug and play.
You don't want to harsh the vibe.
So one of the things I've been thinking asking you is, so when you're recording at home, what's your chain? You obviously an amplifier, and then what's your favorite mic? What's your favorite mic?
It's always an amp. It's always an amp. I don't use
right.
I have a couple things. I always go to the amp, and I have my room next door, just like literally 3 feet that way.
Right, is
my amp room, and it has 2 sliding glass doors which help isolate the sound. And it's almost always a 412, and I have a Neumann U67. I have a Beyer 160. I have this blue Dragonfly that I use a lot, and I have a 57 and a Royer. And I prefer to use one microphone, so I end up using usually the blue or the 67 or the Beyer most of the time. And so that comes into, I have old preamps, and I use, like, for my electric guitar chain that I've been using consistently for the last month, I have some old Telefunken V72s.
Okay.
Mike, I only need one. And so I'm hitting the V72. It's an old tube. It's the Beetle preamp. That's
right.
And then I've got a V76 up here behind me that you can't see. This is my high-tech diagram.
Right.
There's a V76 up here, and it only works when you lay it on its side.
Okay.
It's like a beefier version of the V72, but for some reason now the V72 is sounding exceptionally good. And I run that into my newly refurbished Manley stereo variable mule limiter compressor.
Yep. Okay.
And I barely compress it, but it's just tube after tube after tube.
Right.
And it's fat and warm and juicy. And
so out of that directly, and you're using UA stuff, right?
Yeah, I have a Universal Audio Apollo, and again, it's just really like, and if I want it to be a little more, a little less tubey, I've got some first generation Class A Siemens, and there's the Telefunken version right here.
Right.
The V276 are the Siemens, and these are the V676. They sound really super awesome. And then I might go into a 1176 or this Manley ELOP, that's a little less. It's not quite as huge and warm and thick as the variable mu, and I'm hitting the V72s really hard,
right?
But they're not distorting. It just brings out a lot of character. And I'd love to have a Neve pre, but now they're so expensive that's like it's crazy expensive. It's crazy, but I've just really had good luck with this stuff, and the fact that it's not exactly what everybody else has. That
right. No, V72s are amazing sounding.
V72s and these Siemens V276 were my main thing for a long, for years. Those the V276s, you can't find them anymore. That Paul Reed Smith turned me on to them, and they have like nothing above 10K. I mean,
right.
They just stop. And so for electric guitar, that warm, smooth top end.
Yeah.
But I've used them nonstop for 10 years, and I think they need to be recapped. They're a little bit, every now and then, they seem like it's a little bit, there's something wonky going on. So now I'm back to the V72s, and I'm really.
The problem is, caps after 20 years, and these are way old. They're over. I've got a set of V72s in the shop right now of Eric's, and I'm sorry, Eric Johnson's. I didn't mean to say, but he's got a set of V72s that need new capacitors because they're noisy and they go bad.
Yeah, they do. Mine I have the Marquette Audio racked up version, which he does like a really super deluxe racking power supply and everything. But yeah, and then I also have these Daking. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, these are
like some of the first Dakings, and they just went to Houston to get totally refurbished.
Oh, cool.
So they're like brand new again, and I use these for acoustic guitar a lot. Yes. Anytime I want something a little more hi-fi or pristine without being clinical, there's sort of a Trident A range ish thing. So, for me, because I mix in the computer in the box,
right.
The main thing for me is to get all my sounds as juicy going in, so that when you play it back without any plugins or any EQ, it sounds close to what you want and really, really good. And then I just don't. I'm not set up to come out to outboard gear to mix, so I try to get everything as juicy going in. And plus, when I'm sending tracks to people all over the place,
right,
I want to send them
the best,
the sound.
That's right.
This is what this is like. You should. I don't want them to. I don't want to feel like, oh, if you EQ, you're going to need to EQ this now. I don't.
Right. No.
I'm trying to send great sounds out of here.
Well, of course. Well, you're known for great sounds, so you have to. There's really no option. You can't
hard. There's sort of a few basic things like you need to be in tune,
right?
Tone has to be right, your time has to be good, and you have to be a reasonably nice person and accommodating. It's a service industry.
Yeah, you don't want that. Gee, David, thanks for that great track.
Yeah, believe me, I've replaced a lot of guitar parts by other people that were perfectly well played, but the tone was so wrong.
Yeah, no, it is, and some people.
You can get a guitar. You can get a guitar sound to the point where it can't be fixed.
Right.
If it's like screechingly bright, it's really hard to take high end. It's much easier to add top end than it is to get rid of it.
Right.
So if anything, I always err on the side of trying not to be too bright.
Right.
Because most electric guitar sound way better if you're adding a little top rather than if you're trying to get rid of a harsh high frequency, it just never is. It's just never. I've never get it just right. I don't know. That's just my experience.
No, I'm with you on that, because
it's easier to cut low end.
That's right.
Top than it is to
add low end. Cut
top.
Exactly. No, it changes the way it feels in the song. So are you using Pro Tools?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people like Pro Tools.
I finally made the switch. I think you got me onto Digital Performer, or you and
yeah, many years ago
few other
we
people.
used.
And I made my first 4 records on Digital Performer, and it was very, very hard to cut the cord.
You know, because they kept writing along with Pro Tools and adding feature after feature, year after year, as the knowing, you know, but I had to go to Pro Tools just because in most of the studios that I was doing any work in
Exactly.
was Pro Tools, so I had to be on top of Pro Tools, and you know, and it's now the necessity evil, you know.
I never got on top of Pro Tools. I'm constantly underneath Pro Tools.
No. I know Pro
The
Tools.
thing about Digital Performer was they had automatic delay compensation.
That's right.
On. And
That's
to
right.
get that in Pro Tools, you had to buy the HD version, and it was like 10 times as much money. But now,
yeah, the lower version has it.
You know, and now Universal Audio, who I use, that's kind of most of my plugins are Universal Audio. They
Right.
they don't update for Digital Performer. So, like if you, for instance, have a preset that you call up and put it in there, as soon as you close the session and open it back up, it just says default. So you have no idea to
Right.
reference, you know, like things like that. It's kind of, Pro Tools is a little more powerful. I don't think it sounds any better, but
no, they at some point, you know, like people are using Reaper and stuff that are saying that they're loving it, and it really comes down to ease of use, and that's what I find is if you're used to something and you're fast at it, you know, the people that like Nuendo, right? For me, it's alien. I go look at a Nuendo rig and it's like I don't know where anything is, but if I look at Pro Tools, it's set up like a mixer, right?
Yeah.
And you got your edit window and that stuff, but so are you thinking about going back out on any tours here soon?
No, I'm not. I mean, well, first of all, as a sideman, there really aren't that many tours that go
Right.
out anymore. I love going to Europe in the summertime to do my thing, and we'll see if it's going to happen or not. You know, it's like, here we are again. You know,
That's right.
We'll just see. I mean, I'm hopeful. Certain countries in Europe, you have to book so far in advance that it's not like you can just put together a tour.
Right.
June. Okay, it's safe. Let's go to Europe. You know, it doesn't really happen that way, and so that's a bit of a challenge. But you know, my days of long tours, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure who's out there going out that I would.
No, I was thinking more if you're feeling like putting another band together again.
I mean, I will, but then like I said, I've sort of made this commitment right now to reboot. And,
right.
It's going to depend on A, do I write the songs? B, what are the songs want?
Right.
You know, what do they want? Personality.
Right.
But it's great. I especially love going to Italy, and I've had really wonderful times there, and they love and I do well, and the people are wonderful, and
they don't lift their iPhones up and not watch the shows, and
about, you know, music and food and slowing down a gear, and people are passionate about a lot of things. It's you know, I really enjoy that, and so I can do that and actually not lose money. In this touring in the States, everything is so far apart.
Right.
You know, the drives are so long.
That's right.
It's just more difficult. It costs a lot of money to go out and to pay a band. I mean, if you have if you have a night off, you're losing thousands of dollars.
That's right.
To keep the whole thing going, and so
that's why Joe Bonamassa, his tour schedule is intense. He's like show after show after show after show.
Yeah,
his machine runs.
His machine runs, and he knows how to do it. And he
that's right.
He works his rear end off, and he can do it. You know, I mean, his voice holds up, and his band is amazing. And
and night after night,
I know.
You know, he's got a great crew around him. Everybody takes care of him.
They're really, really together. He figured out he's a very, very, very astute team that they have there, and he's one of the few guitar guys that's really consistently, that government mule. I mean, Warren Haynes, they figured it out that, and I mean, a lot of it comes down to just being willing to work your ass off and having that ethic. And Warren, since I did the Allman Brothers for 3 weeks in '93. I knew him before that, but when I watched him out there, and he continues to not let up, and so I think people respond to that too. They can sense that, and I don't really want to go out unless it's going to be like that.
No, I get it.
Unless we're really going to hit it. But I don't want to go out and lose money. I can't go out and lose money. And
no, well, that's not fun. That's not a fun environment to.
We are in an environment now, though, where you can make records and you can put out records, and I can stream. I do 2 a month on together.co. I'm doing one tomorrow, and believe it or not, it's amazing. I didn't, because it's like live, you sit there, I'm in charge. I push the button, start the session.
That's right.
And it's like people all over the world are watching, and I'm by myself in this room. And sometimes I run tracks. Sometimes I just play and sing or whatever.
Right.
I can feel my adrenaline kick up. It's like a gig.
That's right.
It's like, it keeps my chops happening. Through the whole pandemic, that was what kept me in shape. I'd have to get ready. I'd have to prepare for it. And it was like, all right, it's business time. It's time to go to work. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to practice now. It's two different things.
Big difference. Well, also it's real because you're live. They're there. They might not be in the room, but they're there.
And it's a very surreal feeling.
Yeah, that's right.
If the power goes out, they're building a house over there. If they cut the power line or if they start drilling, it's like my internet goes out. Well, it was
like, thank everybody. Thank you. No. Well, that's, I'm working with these guys right now on this bizarre new NFT thing, right? Where they're talking about having these virtual concerts where people are going to it's a lot. If you're familiar with Second Life, do you ever remember? Do you ever heard of Second Life? It was a virtual world. It was like the most advanced virtual world for people. They would go into this and they'd set up homes and set up, complete societies. And I had met an artist back when in the 80s. I had worked with this artist, and he would want to meet in this virtual world. I'm not going to get into he basically set it up so that for me, that I could log in and go to his place and have a meeting. Right. Yeah. It was like, they were so into this, and they had concerts. Mm-hmm. That literally concerts you'd show up in these virtual worlds. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that now, where you're going to actually do full on concerts and people will log in, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a new challenge, but hey, instead of playing for maybe 10, 20,000, you might play for 500,000 people, that are logged in from all over the world,
or instead of playing for 25, you might play for 250. I mean,
right, exactly.
It's like, it's all relative.
Yeah, no, it is. And you have to just be open and be excited and just try the new stuff. I think that's the only good thing that's coming out of this mess, is that it's forcing people to reevaluate new ways of doing stuff. And even when we go back to normal, you'll be able to pull back and do some things that you did now, and it won't be so much have to, but it would be more of, well, that was cool. I'm going to do it.
There's a lot I want to keep doing. I'm trying to be glass half full about this whole thing, but I don't want to give up being able, because it's a completely different thing by myself. There's some skill set things that I didn't know that I've developed from doing this, and it translates. I firmly believe that the things you learn making records in studio helps with your live gigs, and vice versa. And so like the streaming thing by yourself helps with the band playing. And
That's
then,
right.
you know, it's all good. And I'm trying to embrace the good things and the things that work in this environment, and why give them up? I mean, you know, I mean,
Absolutely. Well, that's like I was telling you, the reason I came up with this idea of doing this show is that, for one thing, I get to hook up with people that I haven't seen in a long time. Now I get to see because you're here in town, but there's a lot of people that I don't get to see and don't get to talk to, and it's been really fun. Just it's trying a new avenue to experience. I'm saying, where we get to talk about Austin the way it was. We get to talk about the way it is. We get to, it's different than the usual, just, kind of boring, mundane, interviews that I've heard over the years, where people just go, talk about, kind of a set list of questions. And this is fun for me because, like I said, I've known you for many, many years, and we've been both based here out of Austin, which has been a fun and changing experience. But, I really want to thank you so much for coming on. I know you're busy, and thank you for taking the time and
my pleasure.
being available. And so you're not going to be at Saxon for a while then?
No, I will not.
Okay, because I started bringing people out to see you, that were coming into town. I was like, hey, if you're here on a Tuesday, let's go.
Yeah.
And,
well, I did it. I've done it 10 years, and I just feel like it's time to take a little bit of a break.
Cool. I totally understand, but people are going to miss you until you come back again.
I'll come back. I'll be back.
No, of course you will be. No, it's awesome. Saxon's a great place. It's a fun concert. It's
my favorite room.
It is. It's a great sounding. And if anybody comes into Austin, definitely go to the Saxon and watch some shows, because it's old school. It's like it's a very old setting, and it's all wood, which sounds great for amplifiers. Wood, and
it really does.
It does.
It's a great sound and stage and room.
It's a great tone. But anyway, I wanted to thank you so much, and I will definitely on a lot of these things, I'm going to do like part 2s and stuff. So please, I'd love to have you on again, and
all right,
and we'll talk some more, and also update what you're doing. Because I want to see what new music and definitely send me something when you have it, because I'd love to hear it.
All right, Lee.
Well, I will then talk to you soon.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.